Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on our Walla webinar series. For those of you joining us live, thank you for moving your schedules around. I apologize for the time zone mishap. I have a feeling this will be a bunch of people kind of popping in whenever they can today. So for those of you watching on recording, thank you for taking the time out of your day to invest in your business. And I'm very excited to be focusing on workshop fashion. So this is a great time to close the tabs on your computer, grab a cup of coffee, and just plan the next 45 minutes or so to just accomplish something in your business. And we are going to be laser focused on setting up Google lead forms and designing the system for you to capture these folks who have intent and drive them into Walla and then make sure there's engaged follow-up for them. So I have brought our resident expert, Tim Tullis, in. So Tim, thank you so much for joining us today. Tim is going to be diving into the details here. And I think, for those of us that feel like we are not marketing experts and Google is not the language we speak, Tim really disarms the whole process and makes this approachable. And the goal is for you to be able to walk away today with something done. So Tim, I will let you share your screen, say hello, and dive in.
Perfect. I think just to do a quick introduction for the people that don't know me, my name's Tim Tullis, and I actually own 4 aerial yoga studios with my sister called Flight Room Seattle. And before that, I worked in the corporate digital marketing and advertising world for about 20 years. And so I also run this studio consulting business as well, where I help studios like all of you with your marketing and advertising strategy and programs. But enough about me, and let's get to sharing. Yeah, I love you too, Taylor. I see that right before I was sharing the screen here. And so we can get into and really talk about, like Laura said, Google Forms, Google Ads. And really, a lot of this is about like, hey, how do you leverage the technology that you have available to you and that you've paid for to really help, grow your business? Because especially like right now, when we are in summer, it's a tough time for a lot of studios because people are traveling, things like that. So this is like a really great time where we can really start to focus on like, hey, how do we build a good sales funnel to bringing in consistent leads? So before, on a previous webinar, we went over how to connect Meta and build Meta ads, but today we're really going to be focusing on Google. And just from a high level in terms of Google ads versus Meta is we want to think about them a little bit differently, mainly because people that we're advertising to on Google, we're advertising to people with intent. And what I mean by people with intent is that these are people going to Google looking for like, hey, Pilates in my area, yoga in my area, Legree, like whatever it may be. And so we know that they're actively searching for certain terms. We're like, as Meta, we're doing more like demographic targeting, being like, hey, are you like a man or a woman in this age, in this area and stuff? And it'll just display to those people, regardless of whether they're actively looking for like a studio or not. So just kind of wanted to give you a little bit high level to kind of get your mind in the right framework and space in terms of like how we want to think about writing and constructing our ads. So the first thing I just want to show you is just have, if you can, log into your Walla account, and then you can just go down to the Sales and Marketing Center here, and then just keep this tab open for now. We will come back to this to get this lead form information, but I will talk about that once we get there. The next tab that I want you all to just have open here is go ahead and open Google Ads Manager. And if all you need to do is you can just Google that, Google Ads Manager, and it'll be like a top link, and you can just click and get in there. And then you can see here, I'm logged in with our Flight Room account. So I would log in with whatever Google account you use to manage your business, meaning like your business profile, your Google Maps listing, those things, because this is where all of your information will be stored. So at the top level, you can see just here's some just general metrics and things like that. But for today, we're really going to be focusing on creating that lead form capture campaign. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you can either click the create button up here or right here where it says new campaign. And we're going to go ahead and click new campaign. And when we do this, the first thing it's going to ask us is what type of campaign do we want? Are we trying to get people to drive to the traffic? Are we getting leads, etc.? You can, depending on what we're trying to do, you can select a different type of objective. For this, we're definitely selecting leads here. And then by default, you can see like, hey, here are the conversion goals by default that they have, like phone call leads. For us, we don't need phone call leads. We're going to remove that. Purchases we like, page views we like, but then we also want to add a goal of contacts. So we want to be like, hey, how many contacts are we capturing from this Google lead form? And so you can see here, these conversion sources would be on our own site, where the contacts that we're collecting, from the ad would be hosted by Google and will be automatically sent to Walla, which we're going to show. So, pretty simple stuff. We're just collecting the type of campaign we want and then just kind of setting our goals. So then we just hit continue here. Here under this type, there's only one type of campaign that we can do. And this is basically we'll serve our ads across Google's platforms as they see fit and how they're effective. So there's a potential that, this ad could be served on like a YouTube video. So, like sometimes when you are watching YouTube, you'll see like a form in the ad, and that is what this would actually function like in that platform. And the best way of looking at it, the same way like Meta has like Facebook and Instagram, Google has, YouTube, Gmail, Maps, search, like all these different platforms where they can really display your ad. The next thing that we want to do is, where do we want people to go after clicking the ad? So even though we're going to be capturing their information with a form, we also want to make sure we're sending them to an area like with our objective. So top level for here, we're just going to say like, hey, we're trying to sell memberships. But Google Ads, just from a high level, like I said, is great also for workshops, things like that, because we're capturing people with intent. So if you have like a summer or fall workshop where you're working on like balance or strength or whatever it might be, those are also really good times to do Google Ads to really help fill out registration. But for this, we are creating a Google ad just to advertise our generic memberships for the sake of this call. So I grab that URL and then I paste the URL here. So this is where we are going to be driving our traffic. And then here, Walla leads. We name our campaign. Big thing just from organizational perspective, and it's something that you won't realize is important until 5 years from now, is I also recommend just putting like 0725, just so you know the month and the year that you are making this campaign, because it can be valuable for you years in advance of like, hey, what worked and what worked at different time frames. And it just will help you organize your data in a very easy way. So when you go back and look at like old advertising campaigns that you have, you can easily access them. So after naming your campaign, we then just hit continue here. And sometimes it will take a second. And if you get this option here, you maybe have a draft and it's like, hey, do you want to resume? No, we do not want to resume an existing campaign. We want to start a new one. And this will take us to basically the very first part where we begin filling out the campaign. And this is where, like Laura said, it becomes like intimidating to people, because, you're like, oh my God, it's talking about conversions and customer acquisition. And I don't exactly know what all this means and if I should be clicking on these things or not. And this is where I'm like really here to help, is break down those barriers, help you build out this, and just help you realize like you can do this. This is something totally within your capabilities and your wheelhouse. So the first part is bidding. This is asking like, hey, what do you want when they're bidding? And what bidding means is like they're actually like paying to like serve your ad versus other ads on various networks. And what they're really asking here is, do you want to focus on conversions or conversion value? Meaning like, hey, are we looking at total conversions? Is that better for us? Or are we looking maybe more for like high value customers and maybe doing large purchases? For studios like us, I recommend just sticking with conversions there. The next key part here is customer acquisition. Here, by default, it's not checked, but it says, hey, do you want to adjust your bidding to help you acquire new customers? So when you click this, you'll see it says, hey, start optimizing for new customer acquisition. And, it recommends that we maximize conversion value bid strategy. So we're going to hit OK and confirm. What this means is you might be wondering, like, how can Google tell if it's my existing customers or if they're new customers? So there's a couple ways it can do this. By default, Google will track everyone that's like going through its search through cookies. So what it will do is if it knows, hey, this person has been to your site multiple times in the past month, it'll be like, they're not a new customer. They know Flight Room. So we're not going to serve this ad to them because we know they've already visited there. So by clicking this, it'll really focus very specifically on customers that have yet to be on your site. So it's like, hey, we are really asking Google, find people that have not been exposed to our business yet. The other thing too that you can do that's a little more complex, it's not super complex at all, but you can also download like your customer list as like a CSV or an Excel spreadsheet. And then you can actually even upload that into Google as well and be like, hey, when these people come, don't serve their ads, they're already customers. But this, by just checking here, this handles like 95 to 99% of all those situations. So this is really the easiest way of doing it. And then once you have,
Tim, let me pause you
yeah.
really quickly. Just
Mhm.
here, one of the things that we often have clients use our audiences for. So for those of
Mhm.
you who are really good at kind of learning how to use audiences and Walla have figured out how important they are, you can narrow down like an export to people who have an active plan and upload that into Google as the list to avoid if that's what you want to do. But again, you can just go with the broader if they've had cookies. So
Yep.
anyway, that way you're not, if you import your entire contact list, there might be a lot of people on there who are still leads, but if you are really wanting to focus in on like anybody who doesn't have an active plan, that would be it.
Yeah, exactly. And just to show what Laura's talking about real quick in terms of the audiences here, we could just, if we were like, hey, I just want everybody with an active plan, I can just go into audiences, create an audience, and to go here and just go class plan status, current active, save condition, and this will give me everybody that is currently there. And then you can then run the contacts like we talked about and then export them and
Right.
build them in.
Especially if you have a lot of them, it might take a second to load those contacts,
Yep.
but then you can export that and upload.
Yep, exactly. So once we have all that defined, then the next thing we do is we go into the campaign settings. And here is where we are going to define the locations. So again, this is a really good way of thinking about like, hey, who is realistically coming to the product I'm promoting? So sometimes you may be doing like potentially like a virtual training session. So you could target all over the country. But for most people, and like for my studios, we're thinking, hey, how far are people really going to be willing to drive, to walk, to bike, however in your community people get around? How far are they going to be willing to travel to get to your studio? And that will really help you define the areas that we want to target. So, I'm in Seattle, Washington. So you can see if I just type, hey, Seattle, Washington, that's 9.4 million people. So really what this is saying here is this is the greater metro area of Seattle. Like this is really multiple counties. And so I'm like, that is too many people. And because we're going to be targeting people that are way outside of the range of like where people would actually come to our studios. So here, what we'd want to do, what I recommend a lot to people is you can target by zip codes, which is really great. So it's like, hey, this is a neighborhood that one of our studios is in. It's 225,000 people. So it's like, great, we're going to focus on this. Or you can actually type in just neighborhood names too. So you can see like in Seattle, West Seattle is like a neighborhood. And you can actually see here, it shows West Seattle, United States neighborhood. So that's also another really great way if you're thinking like, hey, I want to target these different neighborhoods in the city. Google actually has all those recognized as actual demographics that you can target based off of it. Other things too, by default, it will have English here as the language. Some areas you may have a lot of Spanish speaking customers or any other language. If you want to display your ad in any other language, you can just click here and select that as well. Under more settings here, this is, they collapse it by default, but I really think here it's just important for you to look at this, to think like, hey, when do we want the ads to display? So you can have it displayed any day from 24 hours a day, or we can then start actually restricting and being like, hey, actually I just want it to be on weekends, Monday through Fridays, whatever. And I actually only want it to display between like 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Like I don't want my ad being displayed at 1 a.m. because I just don't think people are purchasing things then. However you think your customers best would interact with your ad, just make sure you do that. It'll help it be more cost effective. The rest here, I would pretty much keep everything by default. You can exclude very specific brands. There shouldn't be any reason you would need to do that for our ads. Also, age exclusions, just so you know, by default, Google will not serve ads to minors. So it will be 18 and over by default will be everybody that is included. But you can, if you're like, hey, you know what, I'm targeting like a senior class. So it's like, hey, I don't want this ad being shown to people under 55 because I'm doing like a 60 and over strength training class. Things like that is when you'd use that. But for this, I'm not using any age restrictions here. So we'll go ahead and go on to the next part. So this is where a lot of different platforms have really started integrating AI to really help people build out content for it. So you can see here, Google has added a whole step that's like, hey, let Google AI help you generate assets for your campaign. So I think AI is an incredibly powerful tool, and it's something that, as business owners, we should be using. Right now, I really think the best way of using various AIs is kind of as a starting point. It can help kind of, what I almost say is like, get rid of your writer's block. You can just kind of jump in and be like, oh, okay, like I have like the general idea now, and now I can go in and edit it and make sure it really sounds great, and make sure it sounds like it's coming from me. So to help generate assets, the first thing will be like, hey, where do you want them to go? And then here it'll say what products or services are in this campaign. And, it's grabbing a lot of this from our site. We're not a gym, so we're not going to put that. We're yoga, but we're not yoga and Pilates. So I'm going to get rid of that. We do teacher training, but that's not the focus here. We don't do flying instruction. You can see how it's like, because we use fly and we're in aerial yoga. And so you always want to review these things to make sure like, hey, they are accurate. So, yoga, aerial yoga. And you can just type whatever product and services that you have, and then you just hit enter at the end, and then that will lock in like, hey, what kind of products and services this will help them help Google generate more accurate assets for you. Here, it grabbed it from our site, this like little kind of blurb here. And then also it says like, hey, what pages do you want us to suggest images from? And this is where we have our default site here where we're directing people, but then also our Instagram and Facebook page where we have a ton of photos. So it's a really great way where Google can pick things and say like, hey, we're going to use these for the ad. So for this, we'll go ahead and just click generate assets. And you can see right now that it is going ahead and generating them for it. You can see it's enhancing and generating the images and looking for them. But while it is doing that, go ahead and name your asset group. Like mine will be Walla leads. And then here is where we really start filling out all of the information for the ad. So the business name, ours is Flight Room Seattle. And then here, this is where you will want for your campaign, you'll want to add your logo. So all you need to do to add logo is click add logos. And then you can see here, we have our asset library. You can also specifically, if you have a logo like on your site, enter the URL there, or you can just upload it directly from your computer. You don't have to have a logo on it, but it's nice because it helps your ad just kind of stand out when people are searching. Next thing here, this is where we will see the actual preview of the ad, and you can see it on search, maps, display, and YouTube. So I'm just going to create some, kind of test headlines like join the aerial yoga sensation and join Flight Room memberships. I'm just adding some basic copy here, but you will see here as I add copy and things, you can see the ad is updating dynamically. So you will be able to see as you're creating these things how the ad will actually be displaying here. And this is, again, where you can use AI too, where you can be like, you know what, I'm not thinking of good headlines. I want you to generate some. And then you can just be like, hey, what makes you unique here? And we'll be like, Flight Room is an aerial yoga studio for everyone. And then I can just say generate, and then it will help me build headlines. So, Flight Room Yoga Studio, aerial yoga for everyone, all those things. If you want to use them, you just click and it will add it here at the bottom, and then I hit save, and you can see it added those that I just generated there. Also here, long headlines. This is where you can give a lot more information about the memberships. We could say like lock in low rates now with the best deal in fitness. And really here, we're just trying to like get people more interested in the service that we're promoting. So really thinking about sales hooks and things like this. And this is where I think also like using something like ChatGPT, where you can go back and forth and being like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. This is the type of language. This is my goal. It will really help you kind of massage and develop those headlines and really take a lot of the labor off of you, which is like really important when we're thinking about like, hey, we're single studio owners. We only have so much time. We know how important advertising is, but I don't have like hours upon hours to spend on this. And that's where it's really important that we leverage those tools. Again, here, description, this is where you'd want to put the longer description of the services for people. For this, I'm just putting, or here, I'll just say this, aerial yoga. For the purposes here, I'm just kind of putting in blank information, just so you can see how everything looks. So you can see like here where I'm putting the description, it's showing up down here. And then you can also see like, hey, do I want to select images to use on the ad? A lot of times you can be like, hey, no, I don't want to use certain images, but for some, different platforms you might, because when you go here, as I showed before, here's how it shows up on search, but we can also look on maps and be like, hey, this is how a sponsored ad would look on a map. So this really helps when people are looking at maps in geolocated areas. It'll show up there. It's a really great way of advertising. Display, you can see here. So when we have a display, this is why it's important to pick images. We can show images of it, aerial yoga for everyone. And then you can also see here, the image would also be displayed on a YouTube ad. You can also add videos as well. And if you don't, Google can automatically create videos out of your composite of images. Videos are always a great way, especially for YouTube ads, to really engage people. And I always recommend, like with marketing and advertising in general, like this is all, I kind of equate it to science, where it's like a lot of this is theory. We're testing things. And what we want to make sure is that we're learning. Like, I may think a video would be awesome, but maybe images, your clients just respond better. So that's what you should do. And so I always encourage people to test and review their work, and basically every month kind of just do a quick review over analytics and just see like, hey, is this ad working? Is it not? If it's not, let's work on like what's not and make updates from that. So here, another area you can add to your ad is site links. So these are additional links. So if we were like, hey, I want on my ad, I also want people to be able to check out teacher trainer or classes and schedule things like that. I would do that. What I would do here, I wouldn't have as many as it's suggesting here. It's like, I wouldn't do contact form or teacher training. And classes and schedule are kind of redundant. We don't have a free trial. So I could be like, yep, I actually just want those URLs. And then you can see here, when you create you can just add like the text and be like classes, etc., and then add the URL there. And then we're not going to save that just for expedience here. And then next, this is another important one. This is the call to action. So this is going to be really important for us because we're building a form. So, like, what are we promoting? Are we promoting like a workshop where we're trying to start a conversation with someone? Are we trying to get them to sign up, contact, buy, shop, etc.? So for this, we're going to say, we want people to sign up. And then you're going to notice that we've been going through this and it's like, hey, there's no forms here. This is where you'll see down here, more asset types. You want to click on this and you'll see all sorts of different things, but we're going down to lead forms and we are going to create our lead form now. So you click on lead forms, you click create lead forms. It'll show any lead forms you have created here. But for this, we're going to go ahead and click new lead form. And the headline will be like, join flight room, business name, flight room, description, aerial yoga. Yeah. And you can see you have 200 characters here, and you can see like business name shows up first on there. Then your description will show up here. So you can write like all the information you want your potential clients and leads to show here. And to make things as easily integrated as possible with Walla, you'll see here at the first thing, it says full name. We actually don't want full name. We want first and last name. And the reason that is because in Walla, that's just how the fields are set up. Everybody has a first name field and a last name field. So this just makes the data transfer cleaner and your records cleaner. So what we typically will want is name, email, and phone number. You can decide if you want to make that optional, for things. Sometimes people want to make the phone number optional. And then you can see like, okay, we've got all the information, contact information we want to collect from them when they fill out our ad. We don't need any of their work information for this. We don't need to confirm that they're over X age. If you do, you can always add these various questions. There's also different qualifying questions if you wanted to ask more specific things around, like some people, if you're like promoting an injury recovery workshop, you might want to ask them about like, hey, let us know about any previous injuries, or things also like, hey, what are your goals here, for your program? Like any type of information you might want to capture that you feel could really help jumpstart the conversation or jumpstart them in getting converted and purchasing something. The next part here, so I won't add any custom questions here, but that's how you add them here. The next part is privacy policy. This is important, that if you don't have a privacy policy, you can have, an AI tool help you write one, but it's just like good to have one on your site, because you need one for Google ads, for Facebook ads. And it really is just like basically telling people like, we respect the law and we respect your data. And
actually, you won't even be able to use the Walla marketing suite without it. You won't get approved for a text message number, phone number with the privacy policy. So I'm sure you guys have one on your website. Is my point.
Yep, exactly. And
for you, Tim, we have a question from the group about how to avoid getting spam or spam form submissions. Is there anything in this process that can help you with that?
Yeah, so the big thing with spam form submissions would be making all this information required. So, like, one, we're going to want to make this required, but then two, as we get into this, that's where I will also show some of these more advanced targeting aspects of like, how can we help guide Google so we don't get like spam? Like, how do we make sure that they are local and with people with actual intent? And so I'll show you the best way we can build that to really like cut that down as much as possible to make sure that these are all real leads. Because yeah, to your point, we don't want like 50 form submissions if 49 of them are just bogus information.
Right. We've been hearing that more and more. I think it's just become a problem out there in the world. Like it is. If there are ways to fight it, it's helpful.
Yes, for sure. And then the next part just of the form is then the submission message. It's like, hey, do you want to just say thank you, or we will, thank you for your interest, and then we'll contact you soon. And then you can say, hey, you could actually say, hey, like, complete your purchase below, and we can then say, hey, we want also to direct them here, so if they want to just go ahead and visit our site and complete the purchase, they can. And then this is again like the call to action. Do we want to learn more? Contact us, sign up. There we go. And then this is where we are now going to go back to Walla, and this is where we are going to connect it. So you'll see here, lead delivery option will be minimized here initially. You just need to click that, and then it'll say, hey, webhook integration for your CRM. Send the data, directly to your CRM, but you need a webhook URL and a key. This is actually incredibly easy. And all you need to do is go over here and you just go to your sales and marketing center. And then we just scroll down to where it says Google right here. And then we just click lead form and we hit view. And then this is exactly the information we need. Here is the webhook URL. All I need to do is click the copy button here. It's copied it. I come over here. I just paste the URL into there. And then I do the same thing for the key. And the key is how your account is identified. So the other thing too, when you do that, you can also test it and say, hey, test data has sent. And then you can make sure that the test data got loaded into Walla. But I have already confirmed that with us because we've been using this. But this is really important, because one of the things that I always tell people, and it's something just super fascinating to me, is we have these ideas of like how people will purchase things. So I think like most of us think like, hey, if somebody clicks on an ad and they fill out a form, they're going to buy something now. And if they don't, then they probably just won't. But that's actually what we've learned is not true. And part of the thing that I think is hard for all of us in the fitness industry is, we don't come in here because we're salespeople. We come in here because we're passionate about, our communities, providing this awesome service. And the truth is, effective sales a lot of times is being persistent and making sure we keep following up with them. Like a perfect example, like recently at our own studios, is we had somebody that signed up in an ad a couple months ago and didn't do anything. We sent them a notification 2 months later as part of our just follow-up program. And they said, and they're like, oh, I completely forgot about this. They joined, and then they ended up loving it and signing on for a long-term membership. So my point really here is these leads that we're collecting, if they don't purchase immediately, they are still really valuable. And we need to be creating these follow-up campaigns in Walla to really help close those leads. So sorry, were you going to say something there?
Yeah, I was just going to say obviously Tim's going to jump into how we follow up, but it's so interesting what a kind of distraction economy we live in. And so the number of times I've heard, oh, thank you, I've been meaning to, or right, like you said, I completely forgot. I think just the psychology when you're training your front desk team or your sales team or whoever it is that's going to be texting or calling or following up with these folks is not like we're salespeople. We're like the reminder committee. Like,
Yes.
you wanted this. We just don't want you to forget about it. So it's really funny just trying to bring people back to their initial intent, because it doesn't die. That intent is still there.
Exactly. And like there's so many different things. It's like they see your ad on a bus or something, they're on their phone. They're just not in a place where they can purchase this, but they're like, oh, because like for us, we're a niche kind of fitness, aerial yoga, and a lot of people are like, oh, I want to try that. So they kind of like market, but they might forget. Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing too, that I would recommend just in terms of sales process, things like that, when you're thinking about your front desk thing, and this is actually a lesson that I took from our recent retreat we had in Iceland, is your products and services in your studio has real value, and really believe in that value, and think about how that, in terms of your communication style of like, hey, kind of like what we're saying, hey, they're showing interest and we believe our service has value. So like, kind of like what Laura's saying, we're like following up with them as like a benefit to them, not as like, we're not trying to badger them. We're just trying to really confirm like, hey, you showed interest and we're trying to help you. And we're trying to show you that like the studio that we have has this great value. So once we, oh yeah, I have to by now signing up. Is there anything else I need here real quick? Okay. So once we have created the form here, you will see it'll be automatically selected. You will have all your other forms here that you have created. So if you're like, oh, actually, I want to use a retreat form or this form, you can just click and add them easily there. And then you hit apply. So real quick, so we have now created the lead form and the high level ad. And then this is where I want to talk about how do we cut down on spam, and how, and like, what the heck does signals and audience signal actually mean? Because just so you all know, like Google's search advertising and their search is changing pretty dramatically as they are integrating AI into everything. So before, if you've created words, you know a lot of things like, hey, keywords, like I want people who are searching for yoga or aerial or things like this. But if you've worked with AI, you now know that they're asking, AI responds very well to conversational language. So what search themes are is, think about more conversational language. Like I want like fun yoga studios. That's a theme. Think about how people would be searching. I want to look for, bachelorette. I butchered that spelling.
You don't need to know
Bachelorette,
that.
yeah, bachelorette party, or like, maybe I want to say like fitness, bachelorette parties. So what this is doing is, you might be thinking here like, oh, this is limiting my audience. It's actually not. What we're doing here is we are guiding Google. We're trying to say like, hey, these are the type of phrases and things that our customers will be searching for. And basically what it's going to do is it's going to help Google optimize and find those type of people. And it's not as restrictive as before of like saying like, hey, this is a single term, and so they have to very specifically search this. Because it's AI, they're looking at everything from like a conversational perspective. And what Google's trying to do is tie in a bunch of different terms and figure out what is the most effective and what is resonating the most with your audiences. And very similar to this, audience signal is like another way to help guide Google's AI. And so what you can see here is, if you had like, you can add actual specific data that you have that you can upload into Google. For us, for audience signals, I don't think that will be really important for any of us. Where you might want to help guide would be like interests in different demographics. So you could say, hey, here are some suggested ones, like, yeah, fitness classes, yeah, sure, Pilates, yoga training, things like that, that will help Google find like, hey, in your market, like people that are looking for these type of things. It's really just trying to help Google basically be more efficient and be more targeted with the people that's grabbing. So like, to our point earlier, that we're not just grabbing anyone and everyone that could spam us. We're like trying to get people that are really on this search engine looking specifically for either, memberships, workshops, whatever we're particularly promoting. So, after this, we've created our ad, we have created all of our targeting. Obviously in here, I've used just kind of like Laura Ipsum, like copy and stuff like that. But I would recommend, just for you all taking some time to go through and just making sure your copy looks great. It sounds like it's from your voice. But the next thing here is the budget. Never ever do the recommended budget. The recommended budget is going to be like more than you need to, because Google, this is how they make like 90% of their money is through advertising. Typically for people, I recommend you start at like $10 to $15 a day, because the way we need to be looking at advertising too is, it's not a cost, it's an investment. And we can, like, if we're spending $15 a day, $105 a week, but we're bringing in $500 a week from these ads, we can always go in this ad and be like, okay, great, now I'm going to do $30. You can always raise the amount that you're spending if it's effective. I just think, for the size and the budgets for most of us that we have, I think $15 is good to start at. It can help you really get activity and really help you see like what's effective of your ad. And you can see here, they're just saying like, Google will always say this, like, hey, raise it to a lot more money. Because they just, to their point, it's like, the more you advertise, the more exposure you get, the more likely conversions you'll have. But we also have this awesome tool called Walla that will help us really build and convert those leads. So, like I said, we have, connected the Google Forms to our Walla account. So the next thing that we're just going to want to do is we're going to want to go to Sales and Marketing Center again. We're going to want to go to Journeys. And then you can obviously see we have a ton of journeys that we use. So we use Walla very extensively. And I highly recommend, really utilizing all the features in it because it is incredibly powerful tool when leveraged. And so I'm creating a new journey called Google Ad Follow-ups. We're going to create here. We're going to add our first automation, and we're going to say Google Ad Follow-up. And then here in the description, I actually recommend like writing a little bit of detail just so like in the future, like, hey, something like this message goes out to people the day after they filled out an ad and have not purchased, something like that. So we know.
And also, just to quickly highlight here, if you use our AI copywriting, the AI text in Walla, we pull from that description. So that's part of the prompt. I don't know if you knew that, Tim, but
I didn't. That's great.
Yeah. So if you give it a little bit of a rich description, it's going to help. And as you go through a journey, it's remembering the different descriptions throughout all of the automations.
Awesome. Yeah. And then for the follow-ups, it's actually very simple. When we're building the audiences, we just go configure audience, and we will say create custom audience. And for location, if you have multiple locations, I recommend selecting all for this, just because these are leads, so we might not necessarily know which location they would prefer yet. Unless you're running a very specific ad for a very specific location, then you can select that. But I still just recommend for this to be selected all. We go down to add a condition here, and then we will go down to lead form completed, and then we will go click specific form. My form that I just created is not going to be in here yet, but you will see it right here. It will say Google. It will have your form number in there. For this sake, I will just select this form. So you will select the Google form that you created. That's also why it's important that you name your Google form something that you will understand, because as you can see, after you create a ton of ads, you start getting a lot of forms in there, and it is just a lot easier to organize. And then the next thing here is the time frame. So if you wanted it to trigger the same day that they fill out the form, you would say exactly 0 days. For this though, I recommend giving them 1 day to kind of fill out the ad, check out your site, and purchase things. So right now we'll say, hey, they completed this lead form exactly 1 day ago. We save that condition. And then the other important thing, there's basically, depending on how you have things set up and the type of customers you want, you could either do, hey, I also want to make sure these contacts have never owned a plan. So I want to make sure that these are actually brand new leads. So we can say that as well. Or the other way, if you're like, hey, the way I have plans set up, I don't know if I want to do that. You could also go by class check-in activity and say, hey, they have exactly 0 check-ins relative more than 2 days ago. So basically what this is saying is they've been to your studio 0 times 2 or more days ago, so they've never been in. And then we save that. And so we're like, okay, great. They filled out this ad, and then they have never been a client before, so we know that they're a new lead. And then the next thing we do is configure action. So for leads, I actually recommend, if we can capture their phone number, doing a text. So a lot of times for the first one, I do email and text because we don't know, what is their preferred channel. One of the big things though that we have seen huge success with our own studios and all of my clients with text is encouraging sending text messages that encourage response and start conversation. So, for example, we recently had to do a price increase at our studio, and we gave basically people an offer to be like, hey, lock in the current rates now. And, we're like, hey, you can just go to our site and purchase it, or just reply to this text with let's fly and we'll get it all set up for you. And the amount of replies we got was huge. And so one, it's kind of like a gamification of your marketing, like having people interact with it, but just having something like, hi, client first name, thank you so much for your interest in flight room. Can help you get signed up for our intro offer. Just reply to this text and I'd be more than happy to help. And just, that's obviously I just really boilerplate copy there, but giving people an option of like, I will take care of that for you is super good when we're talking about lead follow-ups, because it's amazing, kind of how laziness can just prevent us from purchasing things, and how friction prevents us from purchasing things. If you've worked with me before, you probably heard me say this a million times, but like Amazon's the perfect example. They spent so much money developing their site to make sure when you hit a button, it just buys it. There's no second guessing. It doesn't ask you to confirm. It's like literally in a shipping container.
Yeah.
It's gone. And that's just kind of like what we're trying to do here is like, sometimes it's like, okay, if I send them a text and a link, it's like, okay, they click the link to go to pricing, and then, just they have to click this to buy now, and then they have to, select the location, and then they buy the plan. And so you're like, it's like 3 clicks. It's not many clicks, but there's plenty of people that will drop out of that. And that's where we can give them that option of like, hey, we're more than happy to help. Like, just let us know and we'll do that. The other kind of like little tidbit of advice when we're talking about new leads and getting people signed up, the other thing too, when we're converting these leads on intro offers, the other thing that I've seen have so much success is like is also having text follow-up programs for people to help schedule their classes throughout their intro offer. Because your best way of retaining these leads is by getting them into your studio a bunch and them seeing the value of your studio. So in the first 3 days of them signing up for an intro offer, it's great to reach out to them via text and just say, hey, thanks so much for signing up. We'd love to help you get the most out of your intro offer. Can I help you schedule your classes throughout your 21-day trial period? So like for us, we have a 3-week trial that people can purchase. And what we try to do is work with them to schedule their classes throughout the 3-week trial. That way we get them kind of committed right off the bat, because one of the hardest things we have in an industry is the people that come in once and then they're excited and then they never come back. So again, like I talked about before, it's just about creating consistent follow-ups, in this. And so, like we have this for the one day after, but like I said, we'll want to create one for 4 days, 7 days, 14, and then like a month after. And we're obviously, you'll always want conditions in there checking, like, did they purchase something? If they did, we take them out of the automation. Right. But it's just important that you create like these sequential follow-ups, because they will help convert and they are automated. So it's kind of a set and forget it until you need to make updates on that. But yeah, that in general is how you kind of create a Google ad and create some follow-up automations. I know I've been talking a lot and kind of also giving some general tips and advice, but I'll go ahead and click stop sharing and just see if there's any questions or any other things you all want to talk about or address today.
Yeah, so we did have a question from Hannah. She was wondering, why you chose the Performance Max campaign over search or smart ad going into Google? And if okay, I'll stop there. I'll let you answer
Oh
that
yeah.
first.
So it's just interesting. If you do a lead form or a lead ad, that is the only option for it. So you can also just like I totally get that. Like the other ad type that you can use lead forms on that would also be website traffic. And then that's where you can do a very specific like just search campaign as
Mhm.
well. But if you're like, hey, I'm trying to do a very specific lead, Google's only option is like, hey, you have to advertise. Like we will display this across all of our
Got
platforms.
it. Okay, that makes sense. And then if you've already started, like a search or a smart ad
Mhm.
campaign, is there a way to convert that to Performance Max, or do you just start over and do it Performance
I
Max?
I would uh, I would just go into the settings at the campaign level, and you should be able to modify it there. If not, yes, create a new one. But ideally, in a lot of ways, with Google, the more we can edit ads, the better, just because Google has already learned
Mhm.
things, from that. So if we can utilize that stuff, it can be really helpful.
Okay, cool. And then the other quick thing I was going to highlight, when you're building the journeys, Tim had, they filled out this lead form as a condition and they don't have an active plan, right? Or
Mhm.
they have 0 visits before that date. The other one I find is really important to layer in there is doesn't have an upcoming booking or wait
Yep.
list. So you don't want to bother somebody who's already booked into class because they may have booked through ClassPass. They may have booked through
Mm,
a drop-in or something like that. So it's a nice way to just again personalize it. People trust communication from studios so much less if you miss the mark on where they are in their client journey, right? Like
yep.
if you forget to layer in already made a purchase and you text them and you're like, hey, you want to try our intro offer? And that person just rolls their eyes because they already bought their intro offer, right? Like there's a
Mhm.
reason you want to personalize it more because it starts building trust with that person. Like if somebody does have a future booking, you might say, hey, so excited that, you're jumping into class so quickly. Can't wait to meet you tomorrow. But it's just a very different, just different expectation from consumers today on that level of understanding.
Yeah, and the other thing too that I think is important there to think about is when we're creating these ads and these automations, making sure our staff and teachers know what we're
Mhm.
sending out. Because that's the other thing too, is like you might have a client, come into the studio and be like, hey, like I got this text about, an offer, whatever. And you don't want your teacher or your front desk person being like, what the heck are you talking about? And it's really easy for that to happen because, we're all doing so many different things. We're creating things. It's just like, it's just good to like what Laura's saying is just making sure we're communicating to people correctly and that it all looks like we're on the same page.
Awesome. All right. Well, I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Hopefully, this was a really helpful way to check a box in the business, get something, completed that can be really, really beneficial. And like Tim said, this is an investment for you guys. It's not just money you're throwing out the window. This is so important to continually do and test. And we are very grateful. Tim, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you, find out more about how you support studios in this way?
Yeah, so I support studios with their marketing operations and advertising programs, both strategy and execution. I would love to work with all of you. And if you are interested, I just put my email address into the chat there. And then also, as well, I am putting in our website where you can either email me or you can schedule a free kind of 30-minute strategy session where we can talk about your business and see if it's a good fit. Because one of the things I just all think is we're all studio owners here and we all can help each other out. And yeah, just reach out to me if you have any questions or you're interested in working with me. I'm more than happy to help in any way that I can.
Awesome. And Tim's also in our Facebook group, so if
Mhm.
you just tag him in there too, you can ask questions. But generally speaking, I think it's only going to help to have a conversation one-on-one with Tim and really get to know what's possible, because I think a lot of us have this really powerful software and we're only
Mhm.
using tip of the iceberg, right? There's a lot you can do within Walla, and Tim is definitely an expert. So thank you all for being here. And for those of you watching on record, if you have questions, please send us a note at hello@hellowalla.com, and we would be happy to help you. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.